Saturday Social is powered by EA Sports FIFA 23 with PlayStation.
Speaking of Chelsea, as you said, it does bring us very nicely onto our next section because, let's have it right, Joe, Chelsea did, what are we calling this, a madness? It was absolutely incredible, wasn't it, in January? And the money they've spent in January was more than the top 4 foreign leagues combined. That's how much money they've spent. And they've been doing it since Todd Boehly stepped through the door, because this is all of Chelsea's signings under Todd Boehly. Look at this. Raheem Sterling was the first to come in at just shy of 50 million. You had the huge fee paid for Wesley Fofana at 75 million. Mark Cucurella was 63 million, amongst others, of course, Aubameyang in there as well. There's more. That's only page 1 of signings under Todd Boehly. There's another page. Here it is. And as you can see, some big fees paid. João Felix only a loan, but that was 9 million in loan fees alone. Mudryk was 88.5 million, heavily linked with Arsenal until Chelsea came in, of course. And the one that jumps off the page is Enzo Fernandez, who is the British transfer record fee paid for by a player. A total of over 600 million players. 600 million pounds, sorry.
And potentially players.
Yeah, and potentially players. Nearly that amount. 600 million pounds they have spent in the Todd Boehly era, which gave us a nice idea, didn't it, Joe, about where we think the guests would rank these signings. Do you want to explain how this section's going to work?
We've got pretty much all of the signings up there. We've avoided a couple of the youngsters and the free transfers. But we're going to go through each of the transfers. We are going to put them in a category. A is the best, E is the worst. Everybody knows how the tier list format works right now. Some of the players obviously haven't played an awful lot of games, so we're going to have to kind of speculate how we think they're going to do.
They've got to agree.
Yeah, they've got to agree. Put a name on. Spencer's going to be responsible for putting them on the board, but we're going to come to a group decision, or you two are anyway. Let's go with Raheem Sterling up first then. £47.5 million on a contract till 2028.
I think with the guys that come in the summer, obviously, we've got a bit more context. We can see how the transfer's done so far. And I think for a lot of them, you can tell by the Chelsea's league position, you could make a case that none of them have worked out too great at the moment. But Raheem Sterling, I personally think is a good purchase. He's still got a few years left in the tank, where I think once he gets going, and he's been getting played in all kinds of different positions, but once they find that spot for him, I do think it will come good. And I don't think it was too much money for a player of his quality, don't you think?
I also think with all of these, you kind of got to think about how did it feel at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think with Raheem Sterling, when we brought him in, you go, the guy scored a lot of goals in the Premier League, still has years ahead of him. And if he went into a team that wasn't as disjointed as the Chelsea team has been this year, I think he would have done much better. Like you say, did he play left wing back at one point?
As well, I think it's a good point.
Yeah.
Because of where he's been playing different places in different games.
I think it's one of the top categories for Sterling. It's one of the better ones.
My only concern is that if you then look at it right now, I'm not sure how long he's got there.
14 starts,
how long
4
has anyone got
goals,
there?
2 assists in the Premier League, 6 starts, 2 goals, 1 assist in the Champions League. Hamstring injury, of course, on January the 5th. So I know what you're saying. By his previous standards, the goals to game aren't.
Yeah, and it's not gone great. And you've brought in Mudryk,
of
course we're going to talk about. You've brought in João Felix, players that want to play on the left-hand side. He wants to play on the left-hand side. So now it looks like a really bad signing.
Well, he's not become a bad player overnight, though, has he? Like, a lot of the players we're going to talk about haven't played in the Premier League before. Some of them haven't played much football at all before. They're so young. You know what you get with Sterling. So I don't think he's become a bad player. I think that it's a bigger issue that's maybe affecting him from playing the way he can. He needs to be, he can play on the left, but he can play other positions too. You know, we still haven't really got a proper striker at Chelsea at the moment. So we've seen him play there before for Man City. Could that be a solution? I'm not sure Potter will do it, but I still believe in his talent. I still think he can come good with the right time. Maybe it will be another managerial change at Chelsea at some point. That could change everything for him. I mean, it's on the cards.
He might be a good sort of.
It's one of these
barometer. I think C might be a good starting point as the first one, just because he hasn't.
Always come back to him.
Output-wise,
Always come back to him.
You want to pick him in C, always come back.
The output's not been great, but he's not a bad player.
Well, let's see where you put the next one. The next one, Kalidou Koulibaly, £34 million from Napoli.
31 as well.
Yeah.
That's the thing, isn't it? A couple of years ago, that would have been an unbelievable price to pay for him. Now, obviously, as he gets a little bit older, I mean, I think that there's a lot of suggestions to say they've panicked a bit in these transfers, I think. And I think the centre-half position was one they needed to buy a lot of players in because it was falling apart in that position. Thiago Silva was the only real one left of quality, and he's obviously not getting younger. So they got him in early doors to sort that out, and then they've gone and bought a load more younger centre-backs, and it's like, okay, actually, was he as astute a purchase as it looked like? But he's had some good moments for them. I don't think he's one of the worst signings. It's just his age, really.
What do you think, James?
I think you can see this change in strategy with these first few that we're going to talk about, and then how much it's changed with all the money that's been spent in January. Again, he's one where I think they've bought him too late. you know, everyone wanted him for years, Koulibaly. Like, how many videos have you done over the years, Joe, talking about Koulibaly going to different places? And it feels like they got him a little bit too late because he's not been good. You're not going to sell him on.
Bogdan on this show had him as his signing of the season.
You know, on this show a couple of years ago, remember a couple of years ago, you asked me to rebuild Man United, and then we made that team, and I had him at centre half for them.
But you can say across the second half of the season, like, and going future, it's going to be a bad signing. Like, because of the number and age of players they've signed. You think of the likes of Fofana, who we're going to talk about, Badiashile, who we're going to talk about, Levi Colwill, who's out on loan at Brighton. Like, does that make it a bad signing?
Would you be surprised if he went in the summer?
Do you think he might go in the summer, do you?
I mean, you've got so many centre-backs now.
Silva's signing a new contract as well, right? Silva's going to...
How good's Thiago Silva been, by the way? I know we're talking about his age, and I know he's only got, you know, he's at the tail end of his career, but the performance...
What are we thinking then? Let's get him up.
I would go D.
Are we going to... Is that low?
Yeah, because I think you know, and this is part of the strategy, the risk with all the money that's being spent is the fact that, are you going to get the money back for some of these guys? And so if you want to push forward Fofana, Badiashile, those kind of players, he's one that falls by the wayside a little bit, unless Thiago Silva moves on, but you know, he's a Rolls Royce, so you're not
forgetting
Todd
Todd Boehly's masterstroke.
Go on.
Player amortisation, he just needs to play till 62.
yeah.
It's all going to be fine.
That's good, man.
Let's get him up there. Let's get him up.
I think we should put him in C for now.
I think it's D or E, personally.
Really think that bad? Ooh. Let's come back to him.
Look how relaxed James is with his cup of tea in his armchair. Just put him in D.
Morning, guys.
Let's go C. We'll come back to him. We might adjust it.
Carney Chukwuemeka.
Yeah. Again, like, he's obviously a younger guy. It's another example of Chelsea picking up talent from other clubs. Obviously, he was at Aston Villa. He's very highly thought of there. We've actually seen him play probably more than I thought he would have, and I think that's as a result of their poor form. And he did start to give the younger lads opportunities before the January transfer window. Whether that continues now, they've got 73 players. I don't know, but it wasn't an extortionate price for what his potential is. And
£20 million.
Considering his age, I think it's one of the better ones.
I love him. I really,
you want
to
go high
like
then?
Him. Yeah, I put him in A. I think he's going to...
Really?
I think he's going to be a really, really good player for them. And I think you'll definitely be able to sell him on, and say you're able to sell him on to another English club as a homegrown player who you'd get that money back if you needed him, which is something that we need to think about with all these players if it doesn't work out. But you've spent, what was it, 20 million?
20 million. Yeah.
You know, when we look at some of the other guys and the amount of money that they've spent,
still only nice.
think of the amortisation on that bad boy. That's nice. So I really like him.
Only played 197 minutes of football this season, but he's straight into A, so that's
Okay.
interesting. Next up,
A or B for me.
Mark Cucurella. Now, this was a huge price tag, £63 million. Of course, he was Brighton's player of the season, highly rated at the time, linked with Man City, but they spent £63 million to bring him in. And a lot of people, Spencer, have been quite vocal about his performances in a Chelsea shirt. So where do you think he belongs in this tier list?
I mean, listen, he can't defend for me. And obviously he can, because he's played in a Brighton back four and he's done well. But when I watch Chelsea right now, he seems to want to bomb on so much, and they're not keeping the ball as much as they need to for him to get away with that. He's always running back to his own goal, the other side of the ball, and he's out of position constantly. For the amount of money you've paid in that position, he's got to be perfect, like close to perfect, I think. And we've got Ben Chilwell ready to come back in. He's not even going to start. If I'm a Chelsea manager and everyone's fit,
Ben Chilwell.
Yeah, he's never playing for me. Like, he's a backup. Based on the players they've got, he doesn't get in the team. He's got to play left wing back. I think he's too vulnerable at left back. So when you consider the amount of money, this is a problem. Money changes everything. When he goes to Brighton on a much smaller fee, he only has to play a 7 out of 10 to look like the best buy ever. Now most of these players have to play 9 out of 10 every week to justify their transfer fee, which is unrealistic. For that reason, for me, he's an E.
Jimbo?
It's been an E so far. I wouldn't be surprised if he became useful as, like when we watched the game last night, the chemistry's not there at all. And I think he's hurting from that. And the crowd, it feels like they don't like him a little bit. He is being the scapegoat a little bit. You don't get linked with Man City and Chelsea and then spend that kind of money if you're a terrible footballer. But he has been a terrible footballer up till now. So in this season at least. So I think you're fair in saying D or E. I don't think you can get him anywhere near a C. So up to you, man.
I'll go D for now then, because we've got him in there. So.
The next one, we can probably fly through slightly. Casadei, because obviously he's already gone out on loan, hasn't he, to Reading. Obviously one of the young group they've bought in, but it was a fairly substantial fee, £16.5 million from Inter Milan. So do we want to just put him middle of the road, because I haven't really seen any of him and he's gone out on loan?
Yeah, I think it would be unfair to do it.
Okay.
I think it'd be unfair to him.
Straight on, a couple of Fofanas coming. Wesley Fofana, again, this was a big fee, Joe, wasn't it? £75 million from Leicester, 22 years of age. Contract till 2029, but that's common with a lot of these long contracts, of course.
He's already had
2 knee injuries since joining.
Well, I think they've got very unlucky there, but then at the same time, you do wonder, because he had a bad injury at Leicester as well.
Yeah.
So you do start to wonder, is he injury prone? Have they done their homework on him? But as a player, I really like him. When you talk about spending the big money, this was one that was justified for me, because if he stays fit, he could be a centre-half for them for 10 years. You know, in the future, Varane's just retired from international football, so he could be the big centre-half for France moving forward as well. Like, his value could potentially even go up. Although for centre-half, it's quite hard to be much more than that. But injuries aside, I put this as a good transfer.
Yeah, I think that season with Leicester City allows you to sort of believe that he can be that great centre-back that you're talking about. I agree. I'm a massive fan of his. I think, and if it's going to be, this is the thing, we don't know how Chelsea play. Yeah. We don't know if they play with a back three or a back four. Is he going to be on the right side of a back three? Is he going to be part of a two? I think he generally plays the right-sided centre-back, which could, imagine him and then Reece James in their prime. That's pretty exciting. I expect him to be a good player and have a wonderful career. So I think I get it.
Should we say B just because of the injuries?
Yeah.
Not quite an A
I think
yet.
the fee as well, 75 million, a couple of injuries.
I haven't seen him play enough.
Okay. David Thatcher and Fofana up next. Played a few minutes last night, nearly scored a goal. Obviously, this is one that felt like it was heavily Brighton-led, because Brighton nearly signed him, didn't they, pre the recruitment team moving to Chelsea. Then Chelsea signed him, took him there. But it was, £10 million. It's quite a small fee for Chelsea.
Yeah. I think the fact that, say, Aubameyang is not in the Champions League squad, wasn't part of the matchday squad, and they got him those minutes. And I think Graham Potter said himself, we wanted to give him some minutes, and he was fun, wasn't he? He's quite exuberant. Yeah. It's one of those where I think if you get the output quickly from him and he scores a couple of goals, you go, wow, this is a bit of a bargain. Or he might be a bit frustrating, but he's cheap.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get him out there.
The risk is low, isn't it, on that one?
Yeah.
B?
Yeah, I'm happy with B. I think
I like James on there. He was fun. I like that.
He was fun.
Good.
Yeah,
next up, Aubameyang. 7.3 million from Barca. 400 minutes of football, 1 goal, just 4 starts. Big news this week as well. No longer in Chelsea's Champions League squad. Spencer, where do you rate this transfer on the tier list?
This is why I'm not having anyone that tells me there's a strategy behind transfers at Chelsea at the moment, because maybe there's becoming one over time. But he was such a bad purchase. I thought it was terrible when Barcelona signed him. It made no sense. And then he got another.
Right, Barcelona.
He got another. Yeah, but okay, I'm not going to quote and say I'm going to Theo Baker and score 10 goals in the Premier League. But people are going to score goals at Barcelona. He hasn't been the same for me since he had that whole want-away element at Arsenal. He's a bit of a mercenary. He just wants... the fact that he got this move in the first place is amazing for only Barcelona, but also for him. It just stinks of a panic buy. Makes no sense whatsoever. Can I go lower than E?
Wow.
Oof.
Wow.
I get devil's advocate, right? I would say he's been a little bit hard done by from the fact that, say, Barcelona, and obviously Barcelona, that sort of tiki-taka style... I forgot his name now. Who's the manager?
Xavi.
Thank you. Yeah, I was right. Xavi. He has gone with. He got chances and scored those chances. He is a finisher. At Chelsea, that sort of creation has not been there at all. So when he initially came in, and you've got all these players behind him, and let's remember they've got 11 forwards now. Yeah. They've got 11,
but then also
and they still need a striker.
Which is
but does that back up Spencer's point about their strategy? You think that's an area that they've spent all this money, that's an area where they needed reinforcement, they didn't reinforce?
How can you spend £500 million
Their
and not have a striker?
strategy's changed, isn't it? Their strategy, in fairness to them, has changed. They've changed the recruitment team. They've got rid of Thomas Tuchel. This is a player that has worked with Tuchel before. You'd think that he was heavily played a role in the Aubameyang signing.
I think he's been let down as much as anyone else, because I think he's finished a little bit. But I think if you don't create chances for him, then he's not going to score goals, because he's not going to create chances himself. So that's why I think he's been let down a little bit. But it has been a disaster. Yeah.
Where are you putting him?
So yeah, I'm okay with
He
these.
used his own words that he used to the Arsenal fans. It's nothing personal, but it's going to be an E.
Okay.
Oh, he's so sliding down.
A B in the S.
He's actually sliding down from me.
All right, the next one. Benoit, who wasn't included in the Champions League squad. Really unlucky not to be included in the Champions League squad.
This is a classic. James will know about this. If you're playing Football Manager and you've got signed too many players, and you've got to keep everyone happy.
He's looked great.
They've obviously said to him, look, you're one for the future. We've had a bit of a stinker here. We've got too many players, right? Alba's not in there because we're trying to get rid of him and whatever. You are one for the future. We're going to play you in the league. So this is what I think with that team selection last night was quite interesting. The fact that, for example, Ziyech was starting when they were trying to loan him out.
Yeah.
The fact that Gallagher was starting. The fact that he was starting.
Yeah.
I think there's a little bit of squad management that Potter's got to do now, which is keeping people happy. The ones that aren't going to play in other games. Likewise, ones that probably think they've got one foot out the door. Gallagher, Ziyech, prove to me you should stay. And I think with him, he's going to get that balance of game time. Maybe it's going to be Koulibaly more in the Champions League and whatever, but he's a good. I think he's one of the better ones.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
what do you think, Jimbo?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, you were talking about Football Manager there. He was brilliant for me on Football Manager. And, I think he's an exciting player. You've got him on the left, Fofana on the right in the next few years.
Only 35 million as well, and we're going on to talk about some of the transfers he's paid.
Yeah.
It's amazing that makes some people sound cheap, doesn't it? And others sound so much more. I think it's, B.
Yeah, B, I'm happy with B.
B. So only Carney Chukwuemeka so far.
We've got some big ones we want to get to, so should we do the next few together? We've got Dennis Sicario, who was a loan as well, and we've got Andre Santos as well, so should we do these two?
I actually quite like him when I watch him play. I
agree.
think he's got a lot about him. I think it's one of the better ones. Alone, there's low risk to it. Again, they needed reinforcement in that area. I'd say B for me.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Andre Santos, who hasn't, I don't think, at the time of recording, had his work permit granted yet, so we can't really. Yeah. We put Casadei in C.
Yeah,
he's gone out on loan.
I think he's going to be very well from what I hear.
But he does look very, very promising, doesn't he?
And this is a big one. So we've got to get your thoughts on this. Mykhailo Mudryk, 88.5 million from Shakhtar, only 22 years of age. Arsenal heavily linked with him for weeks, as we know. So where do you rank? This is a huge transfer when this happened, Spencer. Where would you put him?
There's a lot of moving parts here. Like, first of all, taking him off Chelsea, that's an element of,
Arsenal.
so taking him off Chelsea, taking him off Arsenal, that adds a little bit to the transfer. You're stopping someone else getting their target. But he's come now with so much pressure because it's a high price tag. He hasn't got that time to adjust to the league that he needs. He not only for himself and that price tag, but also for his team who need the points quite desperately. He has to hit the ground running. Got subbed off at half time last night. Like, this is one of the transfers. Even though I think from what I've seen of him, he looks very good. Yeah. It's one of the ones they could come to lose a lot of money on if it doesn't work out. It's an 8-year contract. Like this amortisation thing isn't as much of a hack as people think it is, because if the players don't work out, they can't budge them. He's going to be on a lot of money. If he doesn't adjust and he's a bad season or two, where's he going? What are they doing with him?
Contract to 2031. Yeah, it's a long contract, as you say. It's heavy feet. Worth pointing out that a lot of people are talking about his game last night, but played against Liverpool at Anfield, played very well in that game, looked exciting. Where do you rank him on this?
I think he will get up to speed, and I think with a lot of these guys, you just don't know yet. And the games in the Champions League were impressive. I do really like him. I like what he's about. I think he works well for the Premier League, but he don't. The Premier League is such a high level, so it's going to take him a second, and there is expectations. I think he'll be fine. I think he'll get there. I think he might have been injured as well at half time in terms of why they took him off. But there's a hell of a lot of pressure on him. And the other thing as well, sorry about the amortisation and all that, if he does brilliantly, a lot of these players, if they do brilliantly, are they not going to go, I want a new contract? Is that not part of this as well?
I think that is part of the framework, isn't it? That I know the wage is still big comparatively to other teams, but comparatively to other players, it's subsequently it's lower. Like the Athletic were reporting, I think this week, that he's on like £90,000, which is obviously a lot of money to Premier League sides. But you see players only 400,000 pounds.
It needs to be on that length of contract to justify it.
Yeah.
And when you're going to sell a player, if you're Chelsea, who are you going to get good money from? Is it going to be any of those other rivals in the Premier League? And then otherwise, you've just said with the stat earlier in the show that those other leagues don't have the money to buy these players. So that is a problem as well.
Where are we putting him then?
I don't think we can put him in A, just because the money spent. As a player, this is the thing. Like, we've got another big player to talk about as well. But talent-wise, he's right up there. Yeah. It's a great purchase, and I understand the hype. But I'm looking at things a lot as someone at a much smaller scale but runs a football club. Like, it's all about the more money you come in on, is the more pressures on you from day one. You have to be better.
Let's get him up then.
Be a better player.
We've got to move on a little bit.
I'm happy to put him in B.
I think he looks.
Okay.
I like him. Exciting player.
Madueke up next then. Jimbo, shaking your head.
I really like him as a player. He has problems with injuries, and I don't see a huge difference. I think, look, he will stretch the play, which will be really exciting for Chelsea, something that they need as well. I like him tactically as a fit, but...
Is he going to play that much?
But is he that much better than Callum Hudson-Odoi? I don't know yet. Hudson-Odoi's not having the best season at Leverkusen, but is there that much of a difference? I don't know. So it feels risky to me. I'd say C.
I'm happy with C.
Okay. C.
João Felix, the next one, loan from Atletico Madrid. Heavy fee paid for the loan. Of course, he's suspended because he got the red card on his debut. But a player a lot of Chelsea fans were excited about. So this is an interesting one, this one.
9 million, so they're paying $3 million per game he's suspended for. Decent deal, that. He needs to really smash it when he comes back, right? He has to. He did look good in the game he got sent off in, and I do think he's one of the players that will make an impact, even though he hadn't played in the Prem before. I don't think it's going to matter with him. I think he's ready, and he'll come in and be very important for them, especially the position he plays. It's a loan, though, no option to buy. I think he wanted to get away from Atletico Madrid more than it was like the perfect club for him to come to. So, but I think he will work out long term, well, short term, really. It's not one of the worst ones for me.
I think it is. I don't get it.
Really?
I think you've got enough players on the left-hand side. You've got Mason Mount. You've got players who want to play in that space as well. You know, we speak about 11 forwards, and they still need a striker. And he's not an out-and-out striker. You've got him alone. You spent too much money on him. You've got so many people up at him in E. And it's not about him being a bad player. It's about it being a bad
the personnel that they need.
Bad deal, yeah. I don't get it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. He feels very passionate.
I don't know if I can put him in an E. He's not at the same level as Aubameyang for me. I would say C. I would say C.
Oh, well, if you're going C,
we'll meet in the middle of D then.
Yeah,
I feel bad for that.
Last
two then, because we've only got about a minute left.
Okay. Well,
this one quite quickly because obviously...
I mean, again, it's a right back. Like, he's not going to play this season. He's going to come back on loan. It's a little bit like the Cucurella one for me in the sense of when they've got Reece James and Chilwell available, are these guys just going to be substitutes? Are these guys going to be...
Smaller fee, though.
Smaller fee and very highly tipped as well. Like, could be amazing. And Reece James has got injury problems. So for that reason, it's probably an astute buy. It's probably the end of Azpilicueta, as sad as that makes me, for Chelsea as well.
Yeah.
So it's probably one of the better ones, isn't it?
Yeah, I like it. I wonder how he's going to get in the team over the next couple of years, how that changes Reece James. But B.
Okay. Finally, we've got to talk about this man. British transfer record, 106.8 million for Enzo Fernandez. How do you rate this transfer, Spence?
Best player of all the ones we're talking about, definitely. You know, he's come at a premium. It's January, big release clause after a World Cup. All the things that you know when you run a club, don't panic and get that player at that time. They've done that. I do think he's going to be amazing, though. I don't think he's going to flop. I think it's going to be great. But for that price, of a sort of centre midfielder, he's not going to score a lot of goals necessarily. It's not what he's judged on. But I've just never seen someone in that position move. Bellingham maybe will do the same soon. But I just think it's got to be 10 out of 10 every game, or else it looks like a flop. You know what I mean?
Totally agree. Like, if he stays there 15 years, then wonderful. Like, you know, and Dare just pops it about for 15 years and he's class, then great, then he's an A. I think he's an awesome player. It is about the money. It's so much money. It's so much money that I struggle to put him in there as an A. But I think as time progresses, you will see that he is a wonderful footballer. So
also, if they hadn't bought all of these, I would live with the money. You could say, oh, it's one big player, get him in. Like someone's going to pay that for Bellingham. But it's because they've paid that for him.
Too much money.
And then I could put him in A, but all these makes me make him a B, if that makes sense.
Okay. So another B.
10 million in the
summer. The only A in this whole list is Carney Chukwuemeka.
Wow, so Chukwuemeka is the only
Well done, Carney.
Well
done, Carney, man. That's
confirmation
class.
of the transfer. Let us know what you think about that. Some interesting shouts
Some
there.
very controversial shouts.
Interesting shouts.